Well, for those of you who have more space than just a patio, but may still have a limited gardening area, raised beds are a really good way to go. And Jim and Dorothy Erickson have done a lot of work with raised beds, and Dorothy, who is one of our ambassadors, is going to tell us a little bit about these raised beds. And welcome, Dorothy.
Thanks, Brenda. It's a real treat to have you here today. Welcome.
Well, why did you choose to do raised beds? What was the thought behind it?
The real issue for us, Brenda, was our soil. We bought this property about 5 years ago, and quite quickly we noticed that we were going to have a soil problem. From what we understand, the topsoil off of this property had been relocated about 20 years ago to some adjacent homes to build up their elevation. So we were left without topsoil. Underneath that was shale. So we really didn't think we were going to be successful with a traditional garden. So that's primarily why we went with raised beds. We think they're very attractive. You can achieve a very manicured look. As you notice, we have the Bermuda turf grass in between the beds, and it creates for us a very park-like setting to come in and view the vegetables and take care of the garden.
Well, it is a very nice way to garden, and you do primarily do vegetable gardening here, don't you?
That's right, that's right. We do have some smaller beds that we were originally planning on doing flowers, but we then switched over to herbs, and so the smaller beds have worked very well for that. We have a total of 7 vegetable beds in this little complex here, and that has evolved over a period of 4 years. We began with a large bed first, and as our love for gardening grew, so did our number of beds. So it's been very successful for us.
Well, what are some of the other benefits of having a raised bed like this?
Well, primarily you can manage your soil. You can bring in the soil that works well for what you're going to do with the raised beds. In our case, we brought in sandy loam, topsoil, and then we added manure and compost for our vegetable garden. During the spring rains, we don't have any concern about losing soil. It contains it very well. These beds drain very well, so we're not looking at a soggy situation during heavy rains. For the gardener, you can access your vegetables and your produce very easily. Some shapes are a little bit better than others. So for us, there was a multitude of advantages.
Well, now this raised bed, how did you construct this?
We used treated landscape timbers, and we went with this standard 8-foot length, and we kept with dimensions of that 8 foot so that we weren't wasting any of the lumber. As you see here, we have 3 timber high beds, which is about 10 inches. From the reading I've done, they suggest to go with at least 6-inch depths. We've got some smaller beds here that have the 2 timber height. Either one has worked pretty well. I would suggest a little higher version though. If you are less agile or elderly or have some physical limitations, you could even go higher than this. When you do a very long bed, this particular one is 16 feet long, or if you do a very high bed, cross bracing is important because your wood will bow out on you. Inside the walls of the timber, we have laid down weed block. We've moved that in a few inches into the bed itself, and this is very good for preventing the Bermuda from crawling up into your bed. As well, it helps contain the soil when it does rain. We've attached the timbers with lag screws. So it's a very straightforward procedure. When you do get your frame constructed, you do want to make sure that your bed is as level as can be. And then go ahead and fill it. Filling it is the labor-intensive part. I won't kid you about that at all. But in the end, I think it's well worth it.
Well, this is a very nice structure right here, and there was some reason behind putting this up too, wasn't it?
We were really challenged on this property with sun. It's a new property. We do not have a lot of sunshade. Hopefully down the road we will. But our vegetables were wilting out in the hot part of the season. It was very frustrating for us. So we went ahead and built a wooden canopy. The advantages to this is that it enables us to do some trellising of certain vegetables so that we take advantage of the height in the bed. Cucumbers work beautifully for that purpose. If you want to do some overhead sprinkling, you can go ahead and mount your sprinklers on top of that wooden canopy. One thing that we've incorporated into our wooden canopy, because again during July and August we still needed some more shade, particularly in the sides of our garden, so we went ahead and mounted what we call sunshade panels. And so the canopy has been a structure that we can use to do that.
And you can just take these down and then unroll them when you need them.
Yes, I'd like to show you, Brenda, how
Okay.
that works. Brenda, let me show you what we've done here with our sunshade panels. We have these secured up here with bungee cords. And then as we want to or need to, we can bring down the panel to shade the vegetables. This has been really helpful to have that kind of flexibility on the different size panels. We have them on our northwest exposure, west exposure, and southwest exposures, as well as overhead. This fabric is readily available in local stores. The whole project cost us about $75. It's just given us a lot of flexibility depending upon the time of the growing season and the vegetables being grown. It really saved our garden last year during the 110, 113 degree temperatures we had in Stillwater. So we've been really, really happy with this addition to our garden.
This is a very nice addition. Well, and also in addition to the sun exposure, water is very important to the garden. And how have you dealt with watering your raised beds?
Well, through experience, we've learned a lot of lessons. Let me show you what we've done this year. When we first started out with our raised beds, Brenda, we used an overhead sprinkling system. And this canopy worked well for that because we could go ahead and mount that sprinkler head. But we just weren't getting certain areas of the garden real well, and we were wasting a lot of water on our pathways, which we really didn't need. It made the Bermuda grow quite rapidly. What we did last year was we went to more of a drip irrigation system, and that really made a big difference for us. So this year what we did was we went ahead and laid an underground system using plastic pipe and brought up valves to each individual bed. And this will help us regulate the water flow to the different beds, which is very important because not all vegetables need the same schedule of watering. So that's been a tremendous benefit that we've incorporated this year.
So you're very pleased with this addition?
Very much so, and I would suggest anyone who's serious about doing raised bed gardening to really devote some thinking and some planning to how they're going to water them.
Okay. Well, in addition to how they're going to water, what are some other suggestions that you would make to someone thinking about establishing raised bed gardens?
What I would recommend is for a person to sit down and kind of have a long-term idea of how many beds they want and what that's going to look like in the end. They could certainly go ahead and evolve it little by little. It doesn't have to be done all in 1 year. Certainly ours hasn't been done that way. You need to consider what kind of crops you're going to grow. And that will determine what size beds you want. We have done a variety of different sizes here in our garden. We've got 3 8x8 dimension gardens, and this is particularly beneficial for our corn crop. My understanding is that for good cross-pollination you want to have that 4-row block design. So that's been wonderful for the corn. This year we did a 4x16 dimension bed, and that's been especially nice for our tomatoes. We put in a trellis using T-posts and 2x2s, and that gives us an opportunity to stake it and to trellis those tomatoes. That's been a very nice garden to access. The littler gardens work very nicely for herbs. So I would suggest for people to think about what they're going to grow. Also, have enough beds that you can go ahead and rotate your crops. That's important garden practice.
That's very important. Well, Dorothy, I really appreciate you telling this whole process, and I know that any of our viewers that are thinking about putting in some raised beds will get some great tips from you. So
I hope so, Brenda. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.